Hello and welcome to the Sound Test Room. My name is Jakob. I'm your host and you're watching a hack vlog. And in this vlog, I'm going to be reading your comments on the topic laptop versus iPad or iPad Pro. Before we start, I want to read something. Two pieces I've picked out from a full comment made on the Sound Test Room by Sylvain. For me, this is one of the best quotes of the year. The most powerful tool can be a toy in the hands of someone who does not have faith in it. There are always people who make wise use of so-called toys, and when it becomes famous, those who would despise those tools now want them at any price. A stick of wood can be used to make music. There are no limits for creation. I get that a lot from people making music on desktop system. And if you're new to the channel or the Sound Test Room, new to me, I've used a long lineup of desktop computers, laptop systems. I started making music on Commodore 64s. And sometimes my producer friends, they come to me and they ask me, why would you even use an iPad for music? It's not a professional tool. And I find that to be a very strange question. You can be very professional at doing something even if you don't make money from it. And every time I get that question from a producer friend, I usually play one of my tracks, and I usually play 300 Days because that is a great example of what you can do with an iPad. If you're into electronic music, I'm just gonna add that. Then I ask them, did you like that track? And they have this peculiar look because they know what's gonna come. And they know I'm gonna say it's made on an iPad. And then you can see how they get into deep thoughts, trying to find some way of exposing the iPad as a toy. And then the questions come. Okay, so how did you get the files into the iPad? And when I say that it's all made on the iPad, I never touched the computer, I just made it on the iPad. And then the next question comes, well, the voices, how did you make the voices? You used a microphone, right? And I said, yes, the built-in one in the iPad. And then they suddenly stop, looking into my eye and realizing that if they ask another question, they're standing before a precipice and my answer is going to tip them over and plunge them into darkness. They realize that if you use something professionally, if you do it a lot, you'll probably find ways of using something professionally, like a stick of wood. It all depends on the user, being creative with what you have. Which brings me to the next comment on the list. It's made by Tyburn Tech on the Audiobus forum. iPad for fun, desktop for pro sound. When you get an iPad that has the power of a desktop, then that's when it gets serious. I think Microsoft are ahead of the curve on this. The Surface Pro series, 3 and upwards, beat the iPad. And I guess the iPad Pro 2 for power and access to pro-level software. If Apple don't wake up to this soon, they will hand the iOS music market to Microsoft. Of course, I might be wrong. That's very interesting because our view of what is professional and when it comes to hardware is changing. It's always changing. Thinking back 10 years, my iPad mini actually have more power than my desktop computer system had back then. And a lot of professional musicians were using that system back then. There's a lot of changes that have been made, but what makes something professional? Is it the sound quality? Is it the bitrate? How many synths you can use at the same time? That doesn't really matter if you bounce things all the time, right? What is it? What makes something professional hardware-wise? I wonder what you think, because that's what I'm after. Your opinions? Keep on commenting on this. Here's one from Superdome over at the Audiobus forum. The touch interface made me see the iPad as a musical instrument, which is something I would never say of a laptop. That's another interesting thing. I also view the iPad as a musical instrument, as much as I would view any guitar or drums. I recently posted a video called Vinternos. It's a Swedish name. If I translate it roughly, it's winter nose, but not really. Nose is more like the nose of an animal. So it's a wintry nose of an animal. Think bear. Ugh. And I was using Orpheon. And as soon as you load Orpheon or something like TC11, the iPad turns into an instrument, something you have to learn how to play. Like a guitar, you pick it up, you can't play it the first time, you have to learn. Same thing with Orpheon, same thing with TC11. Just because it's digital doesn't change that. Now here's an interesting comment from Charles Tellerant. Now this commenter actually started this entire discussion because my initial vlog, laptop versus iPad Pro, I made that based on a comment made by Charles Tellerant because he was asking himself, should I get an iPad Pro or a laptop? And he says, I'm just a bit spooked by the learning curve of a laptop, being that I've never had one. No smartphone till 2008, iPhone 3G. So being that this is my first foray, iPad Pro might actually make sense for me. And I can actually agree on that. Now I've been doing this for a long time, but I imagine now as a beginner, walking into the desktop system and all the choices, you don't really need to get into that to actually start off making music like that on an iPad. You only need one app and then start learning from there. You could say the same thing on desktop, but for me, at least, in my opinion, the desktop system for a beginner would be more confusing than an iPad. What do you think? Which takes me to the next comment. This comment is from Vincent Grit. It was a comment made on YouTube. I've also produced a lot of music with computer and iPad. And for me, the iPad completely replaced my PC and Mac Mini. No more pain in the back and neck from staring at the computer screen. Great sounds on the iPad, comparable to the VSTs on computer. To me, better installations and workflow on iPad. On computer, it took a lot of time to even install the VSTs I've bought. On the iPad, it's just downloading from the App Store. And I do agree on that. You see, I purchased the entire Native Instruments complete package a few years ago for my desktop. I can tell you, I sat for 12 hours putting in and ejecting discs, CDs, into the CD-ROM of my computer when installing the complete package and everything that was in there, instruments and everything. 12 darned hours I was sitting there just installing it. And before that, I spent 1 hour on installing Cubase and trying to make it work properly with my sound card. With iPad, I start it up, I find an app, I purchase it, open it up and use it. So learning curve, ease of use, installing stuff, easy on an iPad. It can be a chore on a desktop system. And for a beginner, you don't want to sit there and do that stuff. You want to get into learning how to make music, right? Another point that has been lifted, especially on the Audiobus forum dwellers, Audiogus, Aphex, Kobamoto, Matt Fletcher 2000 and me thinks that the iPad Pro and like the Microsoft Surface is too big. It's just not portable enough. For me, even a regular iPad, regular sized iPad is too big for me to carry around. That's why I got the iPad mini. Processorius brought up something interesting regarding issues and latency. I am an iOS music fanatic, don't get me wrong, but the stability and depth of serious type audio production software isn't nearly as mature as where it is on a laptop. Thinking OS X. Anytime I try to get in depth with something, I run into more and more problems in iOS. MIDI sync, MIDI routing, things losing their sync, things not making sound, interface doesn't get recognized sometimes, things crash on a daily basis, no file system. Now this is only part of the comment, it goes on and you can read the comment in full on the Audiobus forum. And this is interesting because I do have gotten some latency issues, but it's all down to workflow for me. Like one thing I can see as a problem is, let's say I'm using Cubase and I want to have 3 synthesizers connected through MIDI to Cubase at the same time and recording them at the same time. I never ever do that. And then I realized why. Is because every time I try to, I actually have some of the same issues that Processorius is talking about. Hard to do things professionally when it's like that, right? So I solved that problem by going around it. I simply use one synthesizer at a time and then I don't have those problems and suddenly I can work professionally with what I want to work with. So I'm limiting myself due to the issues that I'm hitting, but for me that's just problem solving because I actually get that on desktop systems a lot. I used to get the exact same issues and stuff, latencies and blah, blah, blah. Now, sure, a laptop system can give you the double the amount of power or 3 times the amount of power and you wouldn't have latency issues, right? Right? Well, you can be amazed of how many issues you can actually get on a laptop system. Now, another thing that has been taken up a lot on the sound test room is platform combination. You take one platform and you combine it with the power of something else. And this comment is interesting. It's made by Mikel424, a frequent commenter on the AudioBuzz forum, but this time he's commented on the sound test room. The best idea is an iPad combined with a laptop or desktop. Buy one now and the other one later. Use the computer to run your DAW and take advantage of the high quality, low cost synth and effects on the iPad. That's a great point. You can use the iPad as a sound module. Prices on apps compared to desktop, massive gap in there. The prices on the apps for the iPad are pretty low. And when you have apps like Studio Mux that actually lets you integrate your iPad into your DAW fully, that's a great way of using it. So you can actually have a more expensive desktop system with an expensive DAW of your choice, and then use Studio Mux, a USB cable, hook it up to your iPad and buy lots and lots of cheap, really good, professionally sounding apps and use them as sound modules. That's a great way of saving money and to get great sounds into your music. Now there are loads more comments, but as you can see, this video is already long, and if you're still here, I'm surprised and impressed. So keep commenting, keep discussing it. It's a very, very interesting topic, and we all want to hear what you think about this. Give us your opinions, keep commenting, help others to decide what they should get or not. And when it comes to that, you're always the one deciding, so don't take everyone's word for something. Sometimes you have to test things, and sometimes your fingers get burned when you test things. But that is also one of the best ways of learning. That's my opinion. As usual, Doug Woods, Colin Sweeney and me, Jakob, haQ at thesoundtestroom.com wishes you a very productive week. Now go finger your surfaces and have lots of fun doing it.